All right. Welcome back to the Bring the Juice. My name is Frank Dalena. Today we got Fresno State offensive coordinator Pat McCann on the pod. The boys are bopping, getting a little rowdy. Pat, welcome to Bring the Juice.
First we gonna rock, then we gonna fold, then we let it pop, don't let it go.
It's an honor. Been waiting for it.
I'm fired up for it. Pat, let's start on your background real quick. Played ball at Western Washington, then coaching career started at Stonehill College in Massachusetts, which that's going to be my first question, to Davis, to Northern Iowa, to Eastern Washington, and now you're with us in the Dogs at Fresno State. Let's just start with your last college game. Did you always know you were going to get into coaching? Was it kind of a transition period, or talk to me about that?
I knew I wanted to coach. Really, it was kind of going back and forth between do I want to coach high school football or college football. But I knew I wanted to coach. Mm-hmm. And so when I was finishing up my senior year, my head coach, he basically brought me in and said, because what we had was our offensive coordinator was quarterbacks and receivers. Okay. And so he brought me in and he said, hey, I would love just to literally transition you into the receiver job. Oh. And let Fence go coach the quarterbacks and you be the receivers coach. So that was the original thought, but then, I was trying to do the pro day thing. I was trying to keep playing. Right. So basically it was kind of one of those things where he said, hey, if it works out, great. Right. If it doesn't, then you've got a job here, as an entry-level coach with us. So that was the plan originally, but that was kind of how I made the transition going, okay, I have an opportunity coaching college football. That's what I'm going to do. And so did you ever actually coach there at Western Washington? So he talked to me about that in December, right after my senior season ended. Just as we come back in January, first week back in January, I was starting to train for my pro day, and then Western Washington dropped football. And
you played in the last season?
I played in the last season, last game.
Was that a blindsided thing?
No, totally blindsided.
What?
Financial reasons, so they dropped football. It was one of those things they were looking for a quick way to take, $500,000 a year off the books. Yeah. They did it, and so they dropped football, just kind of out of the blue. Yeah. And so it was one of those things where, okay, I'm already, now it made the pro day thing a little more of a priority. Yeah. But then it was like, okay, if this doesn't work, I gotta find a job. You're job hunting. At this point, I had really committed. I was going to coach college football at that point.
Wow. Holy shit. I mean, that's lucky that I guess you could say that, it was your senior season. I could not imagine the situation. Like, there's a lot of things going on in the college football landscape now, but to have the rug pulled underneath you, I'm sure you had buddies that were younger that were just like, they were like, now what type thing? That's a hard one.
It was. Yeah. It was. And it worked out really well for some guys. Some guys got some opportunities, as a result of it, because you get kind of a free transfer at that point. Right. For some guys it worked out, and then some guys, I think it was just one of those things where guys had to really make a decision if they want to keep playing or not. But that was it. Definitely, it was hard to watch because it didn't really affect me. The same way that it would have affected me if I had another year, 2 or 3 left. Right. But it was hard to watch for those guys.
Well, you put passion. I mean, football's an emotional game where no matter where you are, like, you put passion into a program, and everything. It just means a little bit more because you do put in all that sweat equity and the literal things that I'm sure now after the fact that you remember your playing days. No matter, I've been on successful teams and teams that aren't as successful, and like, you remember the boys basically, and to have those memories, and like, you can't go back and reminisce of, oh, these are our old stomping grounds, and that's tough, man. But you end up from that the furthest part west of the country to like 2,000 miles away. I'm going to Massachusetts. How did that come about?
Well, honestly, I saw a job posting online.
Wow.
And when I read it, it said the person to contact was the offensive coordinator there. I looked at the name. I was like, man, I swear. So I had a coach at my JC that I played at down in Southern California. And I was like, I swear that's his brother. Yeah. And so I reached out to my old coach. I said, hey, is this your brother? He said, yeah. And then just kind of that got the ball rolling, because then I was like, well, cool, he's got a job open, I'm gonna apply for it. And then he reached out to him, and it just literally just kind of worked out that that connection happened.
What I read on the Fresno State website, you were a wide receiver coach / video coordinator.
Well, at that level, it wasn't really a GA job. It was like you're the receivers coach, but you do GA duties.
Okay.
You know, you're doing all the. I mean,
Yeah.
It doesn't say on there probably that I was heavily responsible for the weightlifting program, for the strength and conditioning program in the off season, and in season lifting.
Right.
Video. I mean, you just kind of just absorb jobs, and that's just kind of what you do at that level because your staff's just built different. We had some guys that were high school teachers that would come over after school. I mean, it was just the staff structure was just different. So yeah, I learned more about video stuff.
God, I can imagine.
I'll never forget that first game. And I'm trying to upload the film. I'm there till like 2 a.m, and we're supposed to have it up by midnight, and file errors. I don't even know. I'm not a technology guy, so I'm sitting there going like, "You got to be kidding me!"
It's so frustrating too.
It's so frustrating, and so, but yeah, it just kind of taught me like, okay, well, I got to get it done. I got to figure it out.
Yeah, you can't just not have film.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, it's a unique situation, like you said, but God, that had to have been a pretty cool foundation and resting place of like, this is my first gig. It had to have had a lot to do with the success you've had as a coach now. I mean, it definitely lays the like I said, the foundation of some principles, and you learn more, not just being a GA. Like, you got to go through those struggles of how videography works. Maybe now like what this guy's looking for, this, that, and the other. But how has that affected you, that first job, you think?
Well, I think the big thing that I look at is, even though I was doing all those other duties, I was still the receivers coach. Uh-huh. And so I was still running meetings. I was still running drills. I was still coaching those guys. I was coaching those guys on game day. And I look at coaching like any other skill. Right. I think it's a reps thing. I think you get better over time, and you get better with reps if you learn and get better. Yeah. And I think the big thing for me was, even though I was doing all those other jobs, I was still getting the reps of coaching all the time. And it didn't matter if I was going and working a camp in the summer, and coaching at it, or if I was coaching my own guys. I was always coaching, even though I was doing those things. So I kind of learned a lot of different areas and a lot of different responsibilities, but at the same time, I was always coaching. And I think that's led to, over the years, just banked reps of coaching.
Right. Before we continue, quick word from our sponsor at the American Pistachio Growers. If you want to perform like the pros, eat your pistachios, eat those nuts, kids. Pat, I know you have a couple little ones at home. Do you think eating pistachios and that protein that is provided by pistachios will help them excel in whatever they want to do in life as they get older?
Absolutely. They love pistachios.
There you hear it. Pat McCann's kids love pistachios. Eat those nuts, kids. Pat, considering the fact that you went through that journey and then you come back towards the West Coast, right? You hit Davis, Northern Iowa, which, a little bit of a zigzag back towards the east. Then at Eastern Washington, now Fresno. As you've gone through that journey, you mentioned reps as coaching. What was the biggest, let's start with the biggest culture shock when you started off? Like, what's the biggest change going from player to coach? I'm sure it has to be missing it as part of it as well, right? You just know, like, I want to get out there and show you in cleats type thing.
Well, especially when you're young.
That's what I'm saying. When you just got done.
And I was still in good shape, and because I'd been also trying to keep playing. Yeah. And so in my mind, I'm like, man, like, I'm still, like, my best football should still be ahead of me. Like, right. I'm getting better right now. And then all of a sudden having to take a step back, and now football's done. That's the toughest transition.
It's a hard reality.
And I think the other side of it is, I firmly believe that, like, players, they don't really care what you did as a player. I mean, they do sometimes. Like, they do, like,
they could respect you more, maybe
a
easier.
Little bit, but like, like me getting out there and showing them something. Like, that's not really, it's really about, like, what are we doing for them? Like, right. Totally. At the end of the day, it comes down to their development. Like, yeah, coach, cool, you can do that. Yeah. But, like, help me do that. Like, you need to help me do that, not just show me that you can do it better than me, or, whatever. I think that's a huge part of it.
When you say reps, do you count a rep as a practice, as a game coached, as a whole going through an entire season? And I'm sure that's yes to each of those probably, mm-hmm. But how do you attack each day, basically?
So, especially in season, it's easier just because you have a clearly defined opponent. Right. But, I look at it like, and I tried to teach this to our current GA. Keyshawn, I try to teach this to Braylon. I firmly believe this is that, like, for example, if you're playing Boise State,
sure,
and I come in on Tuesday morning for Boise State, my meeting on Tuesday morning before practice needs to be better than the Boise State DB's coach on Tuesday morning. And when I go out to practice, then my practice needs to be better than his practice, and so on. And I just use Boise, but like it's just week to week. In the off season, it's kind of pick a coach, pick a team, whoever. But I want to be the best in the country at what I do.
Right.
My meeting needs to be the best in the country. And one of the things that I think has helped me a little bit is I'm really big on reflecting and like evaluating myself and looking back on things. And so, there's been time where I walked out of a meeting and I'm like, man, like that didn't flow great.
Right.
Or hey, that was, that practice, like I was talking too much during individual and not coaching, not getting enough done. Like I was, we weren't getting enough reps, whatever. So I try to sit back and reflect on that because I really do believe that it's just about how do you approach it and how you frame it to yourself, and I think it comes down to when I show up in the morning to when I go home, like I've got to beat whoever I'm going against. Yeah. And maybe it's myself. Maybe I'm competing with myself. I got to be better than I was yesterday. But I really try to create that environment in my head more than anything. So,
it sounds like you have and I admire this about most of my guests, and you including, where there's a standard here. There's a certain standard. Any true competitor who's been on championship winning teams, like I know you have, like if you do not uphold the standard, not just sometimes, but every single day, shit's just not going to work out the way it's supposed to. Like, whether you think it or not, rent is due every single day. And I like how you mentioned, and I say this too, in season, what do the fans know? Fans know football season as September to December for the most part, right? They don't realize win, lose, or draw, January 15th, you got practice. You got winter ball. You got these spring ball where you can't take hitting your locker mate in the other color jersey on your team. Like, you go through these summer workouts, and then the people don't have no idea, unless you've been in it, what fall camp is. It's like, oh yeah, no, they're starting to put the pads on. Like, no, man, this is where shit hits the fan. And I think, it's easy to get fired up to go compete when you're playing a Boise, an Eastern, Purdue, Bama, whatever the hell it is. Like, you have a target in front of you, and you could see the mountain that you need to climb. I think when it's not in season and you can't see that mountain that you need to climb, you just got to put your head down and know that you got to go full speed uphill, and you don't know when you're going to get at the top of that thing. Mm-hmm. That's a hard thing to kind of figure out. And even personally, it's like, how do I know when it's time to look up and, did I do good enough? Because as much as I just watched this, the Swamp Kings, the Florida documentary, right? And they did some stuff that I'm like, I've never seen that before in a college. They were mainly, the biggest thing was them doing like the full on like wrestling drills and stuff like that, the mat drills. I've never seen that before. But it makes you think, like, what are other programs in the country doing? And like you said, I got to compare it to Boise. I got to compare it to Washington, whatever school out there. But when you don't have a clear opponent ahead of you, and you got to have that something, that voice in your head that says, keep going, raise the standard, demand perfection. I need to be great, because like anything as a coach, like if you're not chasing greatness and setting the tone, then how the hell are the players supposed to follow, no matter how much good leadership is in that room? So I guess what I should ask is, sorry, I went on a little tangent right there, but I was feeling myself for a sec. But like, but I'm saying, like, when you got to climb the mountain that you don't know what the distance is to the top of, what is the voice in your head that keeps you getting out of bed to kick ass? Like why is that inner drive?
Yeah. I don't want to sound generic with it, but I firmly believe in trying to be the best version of yourself.
Yes.
Like, that's like, to me, I think that's what it comes down to, is literally trying to be the best version of myself every day. When I wake up in the morning, I tell the receivers this all the time. Like, when I wake up in the morning, the only thing I can control is what I look like, appear, behave, all that. That's what I control. I can influence behavior, but I can't control their behavior.
Right.
I can influence their performance, but I can't control their performance. But I can show up, I can look prepared, I can be prepared, I can dress the part.
Yeah.
I can make sure that my energy's right.
Yeah.
All those things that can hopefully affect other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes back to being the best version of me, you know, and that's what one of the things that I think I've gotten better at over time. Like I said, just reflecting back on things and going, okay, what was good about today and what wasn't, you know, and I as the better I do at that and checking in on myself,
right,
then I start looking at it and going, what was the issue today?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't great today, you know. Well, maybe it was my sleep, maybe it was what I did going to bed, maybe it was, you know, whatever. I have matured in that way as an adult, to be able to reflect back and be honest with myself about like what did I do differently, or what did I do wrong, or what did I do well? Like what was it? What was the preparation? What was, you know, the things that kind of factored into that? So to me, it comes back to the best version of you. Like that's the standard. It
is. Control the controllable. Be the best version of yourself you could possibly be. I say it every day. I pray it every day. Dear God, help me be the best version of myself I could be today. It's all you could do. And, you know, I like your accountability is off the roof right now. Do you do anything formal to check yourself? Do you say, hey, before I go to bed, I'm brushing my teeth or whatever the hell it is, like I need to reevaluate how my day was? Do you have a journal, or do you take notes on it? Check a box. I know people have different strategies on it. Like me, I got a long drive. I drive 72 miles to work and 72 miles from work, and I'm by myself. So like one of those drives is usually when it's dark out and there's no cars on the road. So you forget how you even got there damn near in the mornings. But you got so much time, and I got a little notebook next to I have all these notebooks in my truck, back of envelopes and shit, and like that's when I do my evaluating, planning for the day. What are we going to do to kick ass today? What did we mess up on yesterday that, hey, little self-reflection slap in the face, like get your shit together on this end. Do you have anything that you do? Because I know guys operate at a high level, they do some crazy shit.
Yeah, I keep notes on my phone. I've got a million different kind of ongoing running notes things. You know, I've got one that's just kind of lessons that I've learned in coaching over the years, you know, and so when something like really big's happen, it just goes into the lessons in coaching notes, you know.
Right.
And, you know, I've got a Google Doc of, you know, just things that I've learned from Coach Tefford, you know, like it's literally a Google Doc of just like a running, like Coach Teddy notes section, you know, that is just kind of like I got free game around me.
Yeah.
But I do try and make sure that I make note of things the best I can. I don't have anything formal. You know, it might be just kind of reflecting on as I drive home or whatever. You know, but I don't necessarily do anything like formal, you know, to start the day or later. But, you know, I am, you know, my faith's important to me too. Like, for me, it's, you know, humble yourself. Like, I got to look, when I talk about from an accountability standpoint, I got to look at it and go, what was my process good enough?
Right.
You know, I think that's a huge part of it. So I think that's part of just humbling yourself a little bit. So that's one of the things that I try to make sure that I regularly do is, was I good enough today?
Right. All this goes hand in hand with, you know, the mental side of what you're going through as a coach. There's the X's and O's side, which is, you know, that's its own thing we could get into a little bit. But mentally, you're checking yourself, but you're also a man of influence with guys 18 to 22-year-olds that have a lot of testosterone and are hungry to chase greatness. Do you have a way you help the players that you've coached mentally grow, improve, and being a guy at your level who's been in the game for all these years, what percent do you think the game is now mentally compared to physically? Because we always hear it's 90% mental, 10% physical. I don't know if that's, you know, fugazi or not, but what's your take on that?
I would look at it like it's, because I think the main thing is with that, sports are physical.
Yeah.
Like, sports are physical.
Yeah,
like,
you could be physically limited at a certain point.
Yeah. You know, sport, and you can also maximize your ability physically. You know, like, sports are physical.
Yeah.
So I really look at it kind of it's like a three-pronged deal. I believe that sports are physical, mental, and emotional. You know, and so I look at it like those are all equal. Like, if you're not emotionally invested at the same level that you are physically, you know, you can work really hard in the weight room. Like, just, you can work hard because just kind of you're surrounded by everybody. But, like, if you're not emotionally invested, you're not going to go the extra on that from a physical standpoint. You know, I think you can check out mentally. I think you can not be invested you know, from a mental standpoint. I think you can struggle with mental skills as far as whether it's confidence, whether it's focus, whatever. I think there's a lot of mental skills. Now on the flip side, I'm a sports psych guy by education. So for me, I don't want to minimize the mental side of it.
Yeah.
But I also think the emphasis that's placed on physical development, you can place a high level of mental skills development too. And I think that's where it's still, I think it's thirds, You have to take care of your mental health.
Absolutely.
And emotional health. There's mental skills that you need to train.
Right.
But if you don't train them, and those are probably the most undertrained part.
Yeah.
And then there's the physical side, which is probably the most overtrained part.
Absolutely.
So I look at it kind of, it's still 33.
Right.
I still think it's a third of the game.
And we know how to improve, like as a wide receiver, you could, physically is the easiest one to learn how to improve, as crazy as that sounds, because physically is where the plays are made. But like, is there any way mentally that you think there's a secret? There's no secret sauce out there, but what's a mental, exercise, drill, evaluation that you think is critical for guys in the position that you're looking after?
I think refocusing. Because whether it's good or bad, you need to refocus.
Next play mentality type vibe.
And we talk. I talk to offense. I talk to receivers all the time. Next play is my best play. Every single time, next play is my best play. I mean, that's written across the top of my call sheet. Next play is my best play. But I think the refocus element of it. I think the ability to handle pressure and understand, does pressure help me or not help me? Right. And being able to have awareness of that. And, some people are like, oh, I thrive under pressure. And then, if you start kind of digging, you're like, dude, pressure's not good for you. Yeah. Bro. It's not, But some guys, they need, they do thrive under pressure. So, some guys need to build games up to themselves or build things up to themselves. I look at, Jake Haener, is a good example of it. Jake did a great job of kind of the underdog mentality is a thing where he thrives in, pressure. He puts pressure on himself, but it's the right amount of pressure and figuring that out. I think that those are the types of skills and having awareness. Yeah. And you know how it is. Some guys, they get so excited that they're really paralyzed. They're so wound up and their heart's going and they're so pumped, but they can't do anything. Yep. Because they're literally so high strung. Yeah. You probably shouldn't get yourself so high strung then, because you're already high strung. If you're naturally high strung, you probably don't need more people gassing it up versus somebody that maybe you do need a little bit of a boost. So I think that those are some of the things that I think that does separate the people that can kind of manage those things.
Before we continue, got to have a quick word to our friends at FFB Bank. You remember Fresno First Bank? They are no longer called Fresno First Bank. They're FFB Bank. We got these really awesome cups that they gave us as well. Some more swag that we'll be repping. FFB Bank is the premier bank of the Valley, and they have now passed the Valley. Bring the Juice has started off local. It's gone national. FFB Bank has done the exact same thing. For all your banking needs, whether it's business or personal, go to FFB Bank. Shout out to FFB Bank. Pat, as an OC, first of all, is it difficult being both a position coach and an OC? Is there any challenge to doing both? Is there also any advantages you think to doing both at the same time?
The challenges are you're responsible for
the offense.
A lot of stuff. Right. You're responsible for the offense and responsible for a lot of things, but at the same time you have a key part of the offense as far as a position that you are responsible for. Absolutely. There is some built-in challenges with that. I'm passionate about coaching the receivers, that's something that I am passionate about, so naturally my eyes gravitate towards what the receivers are doing during practice. I might, miss what the left tackle's doing because I'm trying to see what the receivers are doing or whatever. But, I think the main emphasis for me has been the fact that I'm not with the quarterbacks. And so I've got to make sure I'm very intentional about creating time with them throughout the week and communicate with them. I'm fortunate. I've got really good guys around me on the staff, and Matt Wade does a great job with the quarterbacks and we work well together. So it's there's not a lot of disconnects, but it's just something where that's a challenge. That is one of the built-in challenges for me that I have to be conscious of. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're a shepherd looking after a sheep, as one might say. Like, it's a lot to look after, and people forget too. I think they don't understand the outside eye. It's like, okay, if you were to say how many people are on offense, you'd say 11, but you don't realize there's 105, 110 guys on a football team. 50 of them are on offense, or give or take, where there might be, 17 linemen, 15 receivers, 10 running backs, blah, 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 all these quarterbacks. So it's hard. And, like this time of year, things are kind of already evaluated. But the other times of year where, everyone's got a fresh slate, who was injured last year, who's coming back, the guy who was good last year, are they still good this year? The guy who was kind of in the sleeper, holy crap, look, he's improved. And that's a lot to just evaluate, I feel like, as somebody looking after his sheep, to put it in, sheep terms. But and you kind of just described it, but being an offensive minded coach, I know that you've kind of, you've climbed the ladder, and Coach Tedford is, I mean, people would pay to freaking pick his brain about offensive minded stuff. But do you think that, finding your identity as an OC, is it something where you're going to take all the different bits and pieces of the places you've been and you develop an offense? Is it something where you want to just adjust constantly to the personnel that you have, whatever year it might be? Or are you more of like, I want to recruit guys because I want to run this type of thing? And you could get into that as much as you'd like.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of it. You know? Like, I've been really fortunate to be at some different places, and some we were better at football than others.
Sure.
That's
sports.
Yeah. Our wins and losses, but I took bits and pieces, and maybe not as much X's and O's from different places, but whether it's a mentality thing, I look at, my influence at Northern Iowa was probably more than anything it was a defensive minded head coach that was very involved kind of on both sides of the ball and really smart.
Yeah.
They play elite defense. And there'd be days where they would just kill us on offense. Our defense would be stifling on offense.
Wow.
And it was just kind of like, that's just what happened there. That's just what happened there at the time. And what I learned was that that's a mentality driven thing. Like, they're doing similar stuff to everybody else on defense, but they're coaching it a little bit better, and the mentality piece. Well, I go to Eastern Washington, and that's totally reversed. All of a sudden, that's an offensive mentality driven place. And there'd be days where the defense would get us, but the offense drives the boat. Mm-hmm. And I learned on the flip side of it, man, it's a mentality thing. Mm-hmm. We were running the same plays at Eastern that we do here, and so on. Everybody
football runs the same plays.
Everybody in football runs the same plays.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned it's a lot of mentality driven stuff, and then it comes down to the details and what you coach.
Of course.
That's where I think one of the big separators here is just the level of detail that we coach with, the quality of coaching. I think that's goes back to the standards thing we talked about.
Right.
And so I think to answer your question, it's a little bit of all of it. I think it's a mentality driven thing. You would love to recruit guys to be able to kind of do some different things. There's some stuff that I would love to do offensively that we're doing or could do, because we have the personnel to do it.
Right.
But you have to continue to recruit those guys. Yep. And then, you always want to adjust and kind of stay current and stay, on the offensive, for lack of a better way to put it. You know, we're the offense. Mm-hmm. We're the ones with the pen first. Yep. So we want to make sure that we're always doing that. But I think you're always trying to stay ahead of the curve, but I think it always comes back to the mentality more than anything.
We say iron sharpens iron. How does from an offensive mind, like we're talking, how do you get more tools in your toolbox as you continue to develop?
Well, I think it's a huge blessing. I got Kevin Coyle, who is a phenomenal defensive football coach. Just talking football and learning stuff from a defensive standpoint.
What they're thinking.
He created a cut up of stuff that they had seen last year. Hey, this is hard on defense. So he gave me, it was 113 plays. And maybe it was the same play, just different ways. Sure. But it was 113 of hey, this is hard on defenses. Well, if it's hard on Kevin Coyle, I probably need to look at what makes it hard, you know. And that's what I learned in Northern Iowa was a lot more defensive football. I learned more defensive football in my 2 years in Northern Iowa than I had in my entire, 30, 40 years of life to that point.
Yeah. Wow.
And so, I think that's one of the big things is like, okay, you think like, oh, this draws up, cool.
Yeah.
This is sweet. This looks sweet on the board. But then, a defensive coach might go like, we should be able to stop that.
Right.
Or they look at it and you go, yeah, that's hard to defend.
Right.
Like, I want the stuff that's hard to defend.
Hell yeah.
So when you start talking about iron sharpens iron, like to me, a lot of the development piece is that. Mm-hmm. You look at the NFL and it's a little bit different game because the ball is basically in the middle of the field all the time. So it's you look at it. And
hashes are different.
Like, the hashes are different. Like that's a big. Deal.
People don't realize how big a deal it is.
It's a huge deal.
Huge deal.
So you sit there and you go, oh, that concept's great, but they're running it technically to the boundary and the field, and so then we try and get it. You try and get the spacing right, so you have to be careful doing that.
Right.
But studying people doing it at the highest level. I'm a big success leaves clues guy. So I look heavily at what people are doing when they have success. I'm not gonna lie. I look at it like, like somebody will say, oh, we do it this way, and it's like, oh, cool. Well,
right.
You weren't very good, so I'm gonna get for a better answer than that.
Right.
For me, I want to look at what people are doing at a high level.
Success driven. I mean, what does that mean? Do you look at not? I feel like as a receiver, I should backtrack here. As a receiver, you study other receivers that are successful. You're going to watch guys, and we can get into who your top 5 all time are at the end here. But are you watching other offensive coordinators now at this point? Is that when you watch Thursday Night Football was last night, for instance. Are you watching the offense as a whole and judging that OC more and more? Or do you have idols, offensive coordinator idols at this point?
Absolutely. The Lions being one of them.
Wow.
I think that the Lions do a phenomenal job schematically.
Yeah.
So yes, I do.
That's awesome.
And I think that's one of the things that over time I've, I look at, man, like these guys do stuff that's hard on defenses.
Yeah.
And you really look at, a lot of stuff draws up great, but if you don't have the players to do it, and so, or the right players to do the way that you want to get done.
Yep.
And so I think that's one of the big things is looking at stuff that's similar to us and similar from a vision standpoint of what we want to do and what we are. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as that goes, but as your personnel evolves and stuff like that, maybe that list kind of evolves as far as guys that, but there's some guys you look at it and you go, man, they just do a great job adapting to their personnel. Like,
yeah.
They're obviously great coaches because, 1 year they're doing this, but this year maybe their quarterback's totally a different player. Well, now they're doing this. Well, they evolved to their personnel and found a way to get it done. Those are the types of coaches that I really kind of gravitate to.
Right. Is there, you think about like the certain freaks in the NFL. Like you put Davante Adams on an island one-on-one. There isn't really very much offensive coordinator savvy to that necessarily, besides I want to get him isolated, knowing the defense is going to adjust this way, or in the red zone, you're going either slant or fade or something like that. Throw it up. That's just football at that point. But is there certain situations that you see where it's like as successful, let's bring it back to like the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay days, okay? There were certain situations where Aaron Rodgers, everyone in the stadium, everyone on TV knew Aaron Rodgers is going to snap it and throw it up to Davante Adams, and they're going to score a touchdown, probably. Does that like a feather in the cap of an offensive coordinator, or is that just like, hey, we got the right personnel, man? And I know that's like a needle in a haystack to have that scenario in football. Like obviously there's very few guys in college that are of that stature of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers chemistry, but is that even like a skill, or is that just like they got Davante Adams type thing?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes take your ego out of it. Like stop
Sure.
trying to draw the perfect play. Like, man, I've got Davante Adams over there. Why wouldn't I do that?
Right.
Like I'm gonna sit here and try and outthink their coordinator and all that when I could do that.
Just throw it up.
Well, on the flip side, if I do isolate him and I can get two guys to go, they're going to burn a second defender over there.
Right.
Hey, you're not going to do that.
Now I got numbers.
Great. Well, now I got to have an answer on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, like that's the feather in the cap is when it's like, okay, cool. Like I got you to burn two over there. So now I'm playing, 10 on 9 over here.
Right.
Well, now what am I doing?
Right.
Well, if I don't have a better answer over there, cool. They burnt 2 over there, and they defended me with 1 less guy. That's so I think that's where you got to look at it and go, man, we created that isolation. We got them to adjust. Now what's our answer on the other side? When that's good, that's the feather in the cap.
Is there, from an offensive coordinator standpoint, do you guys, like, after a game, is it like similar to a head coach shaking another head coach's hand? Like, is it similar, respect offensive coordinator to offensive coordinator, or is it more like offensive coordinator saying what's up to, like, the defensive minded people type thing?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And at this point, like, a lot of times other coaches.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
But probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think, especially, one of the things, I'm up in the box, and between series, I don't really have time to watch what the other side's doing.
No, you're thinking about the next series.
I'm 100% focused on what we're doing on the next series.
Right.
I might lift up my eyes for a play or whatever. Right. But I'm watching what I'm looking at what we need to do. Yeah. So it's not like I can sit there and go, man, you guys did a great job on offense. Sure. So I'm really kind of a little bit probably more, respect to the defense. If there's
is there a definitive line in the sand of like, hey, we need to get a competitive edge here? And that might be a repetitive answer for you to answer, or question for you to answer, but like, it just makes me think like we talked about, a lot of offenses run football, it's all pretty much the same plays, different variations. How can we put, some window dressing on it, or whatever it might be? And how do you gain a competitive edge then? Like, what are the smallest minuscule details you could possibly do?
I honestly just think it comes back to how you coach those plays. Right. There's certain routes that everybody runs, and I always look at it like, man, like everybody, for example, everybody runs some version of these, deep cross plays. Sure. Well, how you coach that deep cross, those details. Right. How maybe it was coached here in the past versus how I coach it versus how, somebody at, another Mountain West school or, whatever, like everybody runs that play. Everybody coaches that route different. Right.
Landmarks, alignment, how you read the defenders, the whole thing.
How you coach the quarterback on that play. Yep. I just think it all comes back to, okay, we want to run this. We want to be good at it. Why aren't we good at it? Why are we good at it? Mm-hmm. Like, that I think that's a huge part of it is the honest assessment of yourself. Like, being accountable to like, hey, like, we're not very good at this. So we either need to not run it, or we need to figure out why we're not good at it. Yep. Or, hey, we're good at it. How can we run this more? How can we find ways to take advantage of that more because we are good at it?
Emphasize your strengths, improve your weaknesses. All right, who's your top 5 wideouts of all time? We're wideout guys. I've had some crazy ass answers on this show about this.
Okay, number 1, I'm going Randy Moss.
Number 1. Okay.
Number 1.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm not going to argue with you. It's your list.
It's Randy Moss.
There's some crazy lists out there these days. All right, Randy Moss.
Okay. Jerry Rice.
Has to, out of respect.
It just, yeah. Success leaves clues. You can't argue it.
This is where it starts getting dicey.
No, it does get dicey. I think, Devontae Adams.
You don't have to just say that, but I agree with you.
Devontae. And the reason being is this has become a passing league. Now, it's also easier to pass the ball because of the rules placed on defenses now.
Understood.
In the NFL.
Okay.
But everybody knows he's getting the ball, and he continues to do it at such an elite level. Yeah. All right, this is the one where you're going to be like,
try me.
Reggie Wayne.
Okay.
Reggie Wayne.
Okay.
Okay. It was 6 foot, 195 pounds, ran average at the combine, average vertical jump, nothing athletically stands out about him at all. And when Marvin Harrison retired, everybody in the league knew that he was going to get the ball, and he still broke records. Yeah. I mean, he just got it done. And maybe he's not like top 5, but for me,
it's your list.
I just look at it like I have so much respect for people that just quote unquote overachieve. Right. And then, okay,
You could have a 5A, 5B if you need to.
Yeah, I'll go 5A, 5B. Go ahead. Larry Fitzgerald. Go ahead. Just technician, catches everything. At such an elite level for so long. So much respect for him and what he's about. And then I love Justin Jefferson.
Already top 5.
3 years, he's the first
player
to ever go 1,400 yards a season for 3 straight years. In the first 3 years in the league.
I know.
The first guy ever to do it. And I love watching him. He is elite technically.
Yeah.
Elite technically. And I maybe early, but maybe it's probably more so that I just love watching him play. And it's current, it's fresh for me, but I love watching him play.
It's a hell of a top 5. I honestly don't hate it. I don't hate it. I think you got enough of the bones there. Obviously, if we were in a locker room right now, everyone would be like, "Oh, Reggie." People are gonna say like, "What about Julio? What about Calvin?" Like, I don't know. Everyone's got their list.
Everyone got their list, and the cool part about it is there's so many elite players.
There's so many elite players. Yes,
and I think that's where it's kind of like it's hard to make a list like that.
It's damn hard, and I think it also depends like what hits you at home personally. You know, like I was in this era of the Patriots were winning Super Bowls when I was like really trying to master my craft. Well, Julian Edelman's like balling out. He's winning Super Bowl MVP. He's getting knocked out, waking up mid-run. I'm like, this guy's an absolute badass. His play was a certain type of way. You mimic it. He talked about like no wasted steps off the line, start low. And I was just like, shit, man. That's what works for me. Is he top 5? Maybe playoff top 5. But
the other one for me, like I look at Terrell Owens. Like
T.O., that's what I'm saying.
How could T.O. like
dominance?
Absolutely. Like for me to leave him off the list, it's probably more so just kind of like, man, I just love watching certain guys play. But man, T.O.
is different.
You could argue that he's one of the top 3 ever.
Absolutely. Okay, Pat, last question. This is a funny one. So you were at UC Davis in 2015, right? I sent you an email from my high school emails, February 26, 2015, and I got no response, bro. I actually went through my old shit today because I was cleaning a bunch of spam, and I was doing my research on you because I'm a good host, you know. I do my research on shit. And I was like, I think I remember this because I talked to Coach Creighton was there with you, right?
Yep.
Davis. And he was the Fresno recruiter at the time with Anthony Soto.
Yep.
And I remember like my strategy was like email every single coach on the staff. GA, video dude, all this. And anyways, I just thought it was funny that, you know, we're on Bring the Juice now. That was 9 years ago. Full circle, man. Life comes at you fast.
Well, it's not. There's not gonna make you feel better, but a lot of people don't get responses from that email.
I get it.
I'm one of the worst with emails.
I'm terrible.
I'm one of the worst with emails out there, so I do apologize. But
it all worked out, Pat. It all worked out.
You're not the only one. No question. Look at us now.
Hey, look at us now. Look at us now. Pat, I appreciate it. Before I close things up, anything you want to say to Bring the Juice Nation?
No. It was an honor to be on. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs, baby. Fire me up. Guys, Pat McCann calling the plays for your offense this year. So far, so good. Let's keep the ball rolling. The fireworks are on. Fire me up. Get your piss hot. Subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe. Buy your merch. Go to a Dogs game. And we'll see you next week. Not bad?
Yeah. Good.
Good?